We are talking New Orleans Saints draft, how the Saints did in the draft a couple of days ago. So you have heard how I feel about the Saints draft. You've heard I gave grades out. I've talked about basically every single pick on the channel. But now we're going to take a look at off the bench. So Jacob Hester here. T-Bob is not on the show today. Jacob Hester and his crew are going to talk about what they think about the pick. So I'm interested to hear kind of the overall thought from the rest of Saints media of how they perceive the draft. I think it's amazing. I give it an A. I love it. I'm very happy with all the picks. But sometimes, right, not everyone thinks the same. So let's hear what they have to say about the picks, and we'll go through and react like only I can do.
And want to get to some of the other picks the Saints had in this draft. Kool-Aid McKinstry is their second-round choice. They trade up from 45 to 41 to get him. Now, you can look at the Saints depth chart, and I did this whenever they made the pick in Detroit. Not necessarily the biggest position of need because we know you got Paulson Adebo, you've got Alontae Taylor, you've got Marshon Lattimore. Now, what is that relationship with Marshon Lattimore and the New Orleans Saints? That's something we don't know.
Two ways you can look at this pick. The immediate way to look at it is this can't be good for Marshon, right? Like when you see them trade up to take Kool-Aid, your immediate, because we've already heard about how Marshon potentially could be on the move. We've heard about that for like 3 straight years now. Right now it's really heating up. So the first thing you probably think is this is the replacement, right? They're going to move Marshon. They're going to make something happen behind the scenes. The other way I would tell you to look at it is, and this is how I believe the pick went. I think they looked at Kool-Aid and said, we never thought he'd be here at 41. We never thought he'd be in the realm of us taking him. We have a first-round grade on him. A lot of people have first-round grades on him. This is a position of need. Is it the most position of need? No. But this is probably the best player on the board and a highly impactful player. So they probably said, you know what? Instead of us reaching on a defensive tackle or an edge or a wide receiver or whatever, let's make the impact pick here, and then let's use some of our picks later to get wide receivers and edge and defensive linemen and other offensive linemen. Let's just do this here. And that's how I think this went. I don't think, now maybe in the future, this allows them to move on Marshon because now they have more depth. I don't think this pick was a direct move made with the thought of we're going to trade Marshon Lattimore. It might equal that later on, but I think this was much more of a, hey, this guy's awesome. We never thought we'd get him. Let's get him.
We can speculate. Doesn't look great. On the surface, it doesn't look great. If you're reading between the lines, it doesn't look great. But he's still a Saint. He has not been traded. The draft is over. Marshon Lattimore is still a New Orleans Saint. So you go get a player in Kool-Aid McKinstry who is going to be fighting for playing time. Again, love the player, questioning the fit just right now. Not even necessarily the fit as far as the schematics of what the Saints want to do on defense, but the playing time portion of it. Because I thought Paulson Adebo and I thought Alontae Taylor actually took strides in the right direction. We know what Marshon Lattimore is. Now, Marshon Lattimore, over the last couple of years, has been injury-prone. So that's something.
Cornerback is a weird position. I've talked about this before the draft where every cornerback is different, right? Like the scheme, the style, their role. It's one position where it's not really plug and play. It's not, like 5 different teams will look at 5 different cornerbacks differently because of the 5 different schemes they run. Kool-Aid may have got drafted because they may think, hey, we need a big physical corner to play, in our nickel packages. I don't know. They may have a very specific role for them. Or they may have a very specific role that they want to move Alontae Taylor into and shift Kool-Aid or whatever it is. So playing time's always interesting with cornerbacks nowadays. It's not so much like, yeah, your best cornerback plays over here and your second best cornerback plays over here and your third best plays in the slot. Like, it's not how it used to be. So as far as playing time, I think they will get creative. I think he will be on the field. I think he will be impactful. The idea that he's not going to play or the idea that he's just going to be, in on four receiver set packages or something like that, I don't think that's the case. I think they drafted him. He will play and he will make an impact. And I trust Dennis Allen defensively to get creative and to get these guys on the field. Dennis Allen, we don't think Dennis Allen is a great head coach, and he's not a great head coach. He is a great defensive mind. He is a great defensive coach. Last year, he was the best defensive play caller in the NFL. So just like we would trust Sean Payton to figure out how to creatively use an offensive guy, We need to sit back and trust Dennis Allen on how to creatively use a new defensive weapon.
Something certainly to pay attention to, but this is a player in Kool-Aid McKinstry that had a great college career. Now, Terrion Arnold ended up passing him up as far as draft stock. That's not something we had before the season, but still, you look on ESPN.com, you look at their power rankings of players. He was 27th overall, and you were able to get him at 41. So there is some value there. So, Taylor, you take a look at a pick like this, kind of right now, a luxury pick. You go get maybe – you don't even want to say best player available, because I did the draft with a former GM, Mark Dominic, and I said, you don't trade up to get best available. Best available means that player's there when you're picking at 45 and you select him. He said, exactly.
Only if you really, and best available is such a weird term. You know, like we've heard that so much leading into the draft. Best position available or draft for need, you know, BPA and all this other stuff. Not everyone's going to have the same best available, first of all. And I do agree, if you trade up, it's not like you don't trade up to take a best available, but at the same time, you kind of do. Because if you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, if the Saints have him 24th overall, I mean, like think about if you're doing a fantasy football or fantasy baseball draft. If you have somebody rated that highly and you have a chance to get them, and you know a team that is willing to do business, they may know, like, okay, well, 41 is the only team that we're willing to do business with. So do we wait, or they're willing to do business with us, however you want to phrase it? Do we wait to see if we can get this guy? Because we really want him. We really, really want him. He is 13 points of value, whatever it is. He is far and away the highest value on the board, which determines that we think he is now the best player available on the board. Do we wait? Because if we don't get him, we're going to have to reach on blank wide receiver or reach on blank edge or whatever. Or do we go get him? And I think that was it. I think they went and got him. I think that was the algorithm. That's what they looked at. That was the problem in front of them. And I think that's how they went and solved it. So, yeah, you probably can't sit back and say, like, oh, yeah, they just took best player available. But I would rather them do what they did than sit back, not make the trade, potentially lose Kool-Aid and potentially lose all that value, just to sit back and say we just let the board come to us and we took the best player available.
He said, so there's something going on. There's something that the Saints know. Obviously, it's not public yet, and that's why they go get a corner at 41.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, like this very much puts into question the future of Marshon Lattimore. They obviously know something we don't, because like trading up to get him in the second round was the biggest surprise to me. And then when you look at the roster, like you mentioned, this is a luxury pick. This is not a need. Even without Lattimore, you have Alontae Taylor, you have a Debo. You really needed safety more than you did corner, which is where I thought they were going to go. And then it was surprising because it was like, hey, you need another receiver. You need some pass rushers at defensive tackle. You don't have another pick until the 5th round. They wound up not trading back up into the 3rd or the 4th. So, like, you know, to use this pick on a cornerback, like they obviously know something's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Or it's the best player. Like that it's not just that something's going on behind the scenes. This is a luxury pick for sure, because like we said, they do have Marshon, they do have Paulson Debo, they do have Alontae Taylor, they do have capable people in the secondary. But just like when the Eagles took Jalen Carter a couple years ago, it's like this guy is the best player on our board. He is sliding. This is a hugely valuable pick. Let's get him, and then let's figure out the rest. This is exactly how I wanted to see the Saints operate. 100%, because like this young man said, you know, we needed a safety, we needed a wide receiver, we needed this, we needed that. This is where we would have seen them reach on Malachi Corley and take Malachi Corley with the 45th overall pick. This is where we would have seen them do that. Instead, they shift, pivot, take a hugely valuable pick, ton of value in this. Malachi Corley drops to the mid-60s, and then we end up getting a receiver anyways. Like, we take care of business later on in the draft. We take, Bub Means. We get Christian Boyd on the defensive line. We handle some stuff later on. So, and I'm just using these two players, and I'm overly simplifying this, but is the difference between Malachi Corley and Bub Means, is it 120 picks? Corley was taking, like 60th? Means was taking like 170, something like that. Is it 110 picks? Is that really the difference? I don't think so. So I think we made the right move here to not sit back, not possibly reach, not trade down, not take need, and instead, for one rare time, the Saints did exactly what we've been begging them to do, where when in doubt, just get the best player available. When in doubt, fill the roster with great players. Is anybody going to be upset if Kool-Aid turns out to be a fantastic cornerback? If he turns out to be a really, really good cornerback, is anybody going to sit back and say, man, damn, we got too many lockdown corners over here? Guys, ladies and gentlemen, what the hell are we going to do? We haven't given up a passing touchdown in 10 weeks. We've got the best cornerback in the NFL in Marshon Lattimore, and then, makes me sick, we got another best cornerback in the NFL in Kool-Aid McKinstry. And then just when you thought it was bad enough, we also have capable cornerbacks in Paulson Adebo and Alontae Taylor. Like, no one's ever going to say that, right? The only way this is a bad pick is if Kool-Aid McKinstry turns out to just be complete garbage. Can't play. But we can't be results-driven anyways. Can't be super results-driven when it comes to this kind of stuff. I love the philosophy. I love the cojones to go make the pick.
Yeah, and it can be a future pick, obviously, for, you got a couple of guys that are going to be up next year at that position. But again, kind of like we talked about, I mean, certainly not in the same way the Falcons when they select Penix, but like you look ahead and you start to plan. It just feels like the Saints, their roster, they don't have the luxury of looking ahead right now, right? They've certainly got some holes that they needed to fill within this draft, and they did that in some ways. They did it.
That's not wholly true. The Saints do have a unique, I always talk about windows, I always talk about all that stuff, but the Saints do have a unique window where there's kind of two overlapping. They have the Carr window, which is probably within the next, which is kind of, Carr window, some kind of pun there. We'll figure it out. It's still early. You have that, which is probably 2-3 years. But then that doesn't totally line up with the rest of the team. Like, you're not all in on those 2 or 3 years. So you could theoretically line up a second window where when Carr gets out of there, you still have a good core roster. You still have, the Olave and who, people from this draft, and your line is relatively young now. So there is kind of a second window there.
It at tackle. I think when you look at a couple of other positions, they selected a player that's going to help them right now. Like, again, this is a really good football player that's going to play, it feels like, a long time in the NFL, and you have some value. You get him at 41. He was a top 30 player, but I'm wondering how that pecking order of rotation is going to play out. The Saints.
If I told you that Kool-Aid will play a majority of snaps, if he plays a majority of plays this season, if he is a impactful player, I think you'd look at this pick and say, okay. The only question and it's a legit concern, the only question is, how much will he play? If you can forecast and see into the future and say he ends up playing on a decent amount of snaps, his snap share is pretty strong. If that's the case, then problem solved. Great pick.
Also,
if he does not play, that's my caveat. I am saying that he does play, but if for some reason he doesn't get playing time, I agree. This is a bit of a baffling pick in that case, but I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to happen.
A draft pick we're going to talk about here probably a lot at the end of hour number 1. They select Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina, and we actually had a chance to catch up with Spencer Rattler at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, and we're going to play that probably at the end of this hour. Look, this is a pick that makes sense to me.
I love it. Love it.
You can say, well, wait a minute. You just said we didn't need a corner and we didn't need a quarterback. We got like 17 quarterbacks in the quarterback room. You have a bad quarterback room.
Yes.
Just because you got players. Like, the corner room is good. Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, Marshon Lattimore. That's a good room.
No doubt.
The quarterback room is not a good one.
No, it's not.
I mean, you've got guys like Kellen Mond, who was throwing at the combine this year.
I mean, look, the quarterback room right now, it might as well be, Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, and Meg Thee Stallion, because the quarterback room is ass. You know what I'm saying? The quarterback room is not good. It's not strong. You got Derek Carr, and then, LOLs across the board. So the fact that you get a guy, now this is where, you talk about a puzzle piece. This is where you talk about a puzzle piece, ladies and gentlemen, where we have those two timelines that I was just talking about. This timeline is unbelievable how good it fits, how perfect it fits. Rattler, 23 years old, needs some time to develop. Derek Carr, probably on the Saints for another 2 seasons. That allows Rattler to develop. The timeline fits perfectly. Rattler turns 25, becomes the starter, and his physical skill set, that's what I like so much about this. Just like the Kool-Aid pick, where it's a change in philosophy and all that, this pick is so different than what we've seen before. This pick is so different from the Trevor Siemians and the Nathan Petermans and the Jake Hayners and even the Derek Carrs and the Ian Books and the Garrett Graysons and Andy Dalton and all these guys who we've seen. Spencer Rattler's totally different. Spencer Rattler's an athlete. He's mobile. He great arm. He's got, granted, it didn't work out in college or whatever, but he's got this like serious pedigree of being the best prospect in high school and then the best prospect in college, the Heisman favorite, the front runner, like all this. I mean, it's just exciting to see this team change. Like we have been begging. We've been begging for change. We've been begging for an evolution. We've been begging for something new. I hear people all the time say, I want to get away from the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you it's over. And that's what I told you when they hired Clint Kubiak. Everyone kept saying, how do we know Kubiak can actually call plays? How do we know he can do this? That's not the point. The point isn't the individual players and coaches or whatever else. It's this philosophical shift. You want to change. You want an evolution. The Saints are giving it to you. Spencer Rattler is the most different quarterback we have had in a long, long time as far as what he's bringing to the table and his skill set. The Saints are going for this. Kool-Aid McKinstry, same thing. The philosophy to go up and get that guy, to draft the best player available, fill the roster with talent, that's what I'm talking about. Clint Kubiak coming in here completely outside of the building, totally brand new ideas. He's coming in, and we're going to see what he can do too. I mean, for all the Saints fans who have been telling me the sky is falling and this team makes them miserable, the fact that after 9 wins, we are willing to have this much of a shift, we're having this much of a turnaround, this much of a change. I mean, I am thrilled. I am thrilled to be a Saints fan today.
2 rookies. No disrespect to that. He found a way to get a showcase and he got a contract, but that's what he was doing. Nathan Peterman, don't really have to add on to that. Nathan Peterman. You look at some of the other quarterbacks, Jake Haener, we don't know what Jake Haener is, right? You select him in the 4th round last year. And then we've certainly talked about Derek Carr here. So you have a chance to add a quarterback that at one point in his college career was talked about being a solid first rounder.
The number 1 overall pick. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer Rattler, I mean, granted, again, fall from grace. You got a guy who won the Elite 11 quarterback camp, who was the number 1 quarterback prospect coming out of high school, Oklahoma starting quarterback. Lincoln Riley chose him, beat out Caleb Williams. He was the odds-on Vegas favorite to win the Heisman. Then he was the odds-on Vegas favorite to be the first overall pick. Yeah, it didn't work out, but that talent is still there somewhere. Can you develop and get it out of him? I hope so. But this guy, the pedigree is crazy. That talent, that you don't get those accolades without having some kind of talent somewhere. And yeah, he could be a bust for sure. Jamarcus Russell was a bust with the same kind of accolades. It happens, no doubt about it. But I would rather take a chance on a guy with a ceiling this high, with this kind of pedigree. I would much rather take a chance on that than some guy who was average as hell for Minnesota, and his ceiling isn't that high.
You get a quarterback that got a little humbled, right? And he'll tell you that throughout his college career. He's a talented quarterback. I know he's not the physical freak. He's not 6'4", 6'5", whatever. He's 6 foot tall and ran a 5 flat. Everybody wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a Lamar Jackson, but he is an athlete. He is mobile enough. He's very similar like Patrick Mahomes, where sneaky mobile, sneaky athlete, and he is humble. I mean, he said in his interview we covered on the channel where when he was at the Saints facility, they went and ate at Fleming's. Fleming's is in a mall parking lot. It doesn't get more humble than that. It doesn't get more humble than Fleming's.
I understand that portion of it. But as far as arm talent, Spencer Rattler has a ton, and he's got some upside still as well. Again, this is a player that his power ranking, he was rated 98th. He was the 7th best quarterback. There were 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 13 picks, right? So you got the guy right after one of those guys that went in the first round in the 5th round.
Same thing I said with Bub Means and Malachi Corley. Is the difference between Spencer Rattler and Bo Nix really 140 picks? No. It's just public perception, narrative, all that stuff. I'm not saying that Spencer Rattler should have been a first-round pick, and I'm not saying Bo Nix should have been a fifth-round pick, but their talent level is not that different. It's not 150-something picks different. Oregon was better than South Carolina. There's a lot that goes into where people get drafted. But when you look at where in the past, when you look at where Jake Haener was drafted, where Malik Willis was drafted, where Kenny Pickett was drafted, where Desmond Ridder was drafted, where some of these guys are drafted, and then you look at where we get to take a chance on Spencer Rattler, it's a dream.
According to a lot of people, not just ESPN.com, you look at Bleacher Report, you look at all these people, right? I sat next to a GM for the first, second, and third round. And so, like, this is a player that is top 100 player talent, and you get him in the fifth round. Taylor, when I look at this quarterback room, I'm not going to hate on this pick because, to me, he instantly becomes probably the second most talented player and with the potential to be maybe the most talented player in the room.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I agree. He probably starts off as the third-string quarterback. Peterman's probably the backup because you do want your veteran there to be the quote-unquote backup. But then I think Rattler very quickly becomes the actual backup, and then he very quickly becomes the heir apparent.
he's battling for a QB2 spot like day one, right? Because
yes.
Yeah, you have
yeah.
What do you have, 5 quarterbacks on the roster now?
But that's why I also like that it's not really a competition. Like people always say, or people have been saying, like talking about the actual competition. That's where the scheme fits and the timeline fits. There is no competition. Spencer Rattler isn't competing with Nathan Peterman. He might be technically competing with them. Of course, Rattler is going to compete, but no one's actually sitting there like, I wonder who's better, Nathan Peterman or Spencer Rattler. The front office knows they're going to turn to Rattler at some point. You don't want to turn to him in week 1. If Derek Carr gets hurt in the first quarter of the game, fingers crossed it doesn't happen, Peterman's going in just to take the lumps, steer the ship, whatever, until we get the young guys ready. And now the young guy is Spencer Rattler. So it's a fantastic, and same with Derek Carr. Carr is going to feel no pressure from Rattler. Rattler's going to feel no pressure to Carr. It's going to be a seamless handoff, a seamless transition. Like if you think about, this is going to be a crazy metaphor. I've had a tremendous amount of coffee today. If you, like a relay race, right? The person in front carrying the baton, they're not running away from the person trying to catch them. Just like the person trying to catch them is not chasing after them. Inherently, the person in front is running away and the other one is chasing after them, but it's all part of this big seamless transition. Like they're both working together to hand off the baton, even though it looks like one's running away and one's trying to catch up, right? So Derek Carr is not going to be trying to separate himself from Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is not going to be trying to tear Derek Carr down to try and jump his position. It's going to be a very seamless transition. They may be pushing each other just inherently, just like the relay race, but they're on the same team. This has become such an organic, beautiful quarterback succession plan. I'm actually kind of shocked the Saints put it together because this is something like you would see, dare I say, like a high-level A-plus franchise would do.
But outside of Derek Carr, you have Jake Haener, who's unproven.
I'm fired up
Nathan
today.
Peterman, which we know what he is and ain't very good. Then you sign Kellen Mond as well. Like, I love this pick. And again, when you were saying, oh, well, people are going to say, hey, you drafted a corner. That was a luxury position as well. Yeah, but you...
I was in the middle. I think I was about to have a stroke or something. I wouldn't even listen to what this young guy had to say. But when he's talking about Kellen Mond and Nathan Peterman, the Saints might as well, the 3 quarterbacks he's naming, they might as well have been who the fook cares, because it doesn't matter. All that matters is Carr is the starter, Rattler is the future, whatever nameless, faceless people are in between, whatever. But Kellen Mond, Nathan Peterman, they're just holding roster spots.
Traded up in the second round to get that. You got Spencer Rattler in round 5. This was a guy 2 years ago before Caleb Williams beat it out of Oklahoma that everybody was like, hey, this guy is a future first-round pick. We've seen the talent. It was the North Carolina game last year, the first game of the season. Look, they lose that game, they get smoked. He had no offensive line. He was under pressure the entire time, and he goes 30 of 37. Like,
not for nothing. Beat Tennessee, beat Clemson with no offensive line. Say what you want. Guy could have packed it in. Guy could have cried, could have whined because he got beat out by Caleb Williams and had to transfer to South Carolina. He got humbled, made the most of it. Sounds like he loves his time there. Again, beat Tennessee, beat Clemson, turned it around. I love it. I'm not a jersey guy. I might buy, besides Jersey Mike's, but I'm not a jersey guy. I might buy a Spencer Rattler jersey because I'm so all in on this. I love it.
weathered the storm. He was able to bounce back. He showed composure in that game, and y'all talked about it at the Senior Bowl. Like, hey, if you had a better offensive line, like you'd had like a 25% bump in production. Like, I think he's a talented player.
Wow, just
yeah, he is. Love that members only jacket. I need to bring mine back. I've got one. I need to bring it back. It's not this beautiful slate gray. Mine is white actually, but there it is. I mean, I love it, and you know, I think everyone's going to have a slightly different opinion. I'm not saying you have to believe the Saints hit an A+ out of the park home run with the draft, but it does seem like everyone is in a positive direction from the draft. If you're, I have yet to see someone say we really flunked this draft. I think you'd be kind of trolling if you did, but I mean, I'm feeling good. Let's get some hoot-ats down in the chat because I'm feeling real good, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.